being able to lobby and know policy, and lobbyists that went into a contract will tell you this, is different than getting business.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit of sort of selling yourself on what you're capable of doing and then hoping you can deliver.
Right.
I think the point in my career where I got better at it was when I started to be myself. When I started for many years, I was trying to fit in and look at so-and-so lobbyists and what are they doing, and I want to be like them. And then I didn't even mention home building because I was embarrassed about what had happened. And so once it clicked in me to just be myself, then it made the business development side much better for me.
Hello and welcome again to another episode of Sacktown Talks. Today we're glad to be joined by lobbyist Steve Cruz, Cruz Strategy. Steve, how's it going? Thanks for joining us.
Great. Thank you for having me. A big fan of the show and happy to be here.
Yeah, we're glad to have our first fan, our one and only fan here on the show today. Steve, we just had to end a session. Kind of how did session end for you?
Yeah, I think it was a good year and always eventful. And I don't think over the last 20 years, it hasn't been a year that I'm there, into the wee hours, to the crowded now rotunda with other lobbyists, trying to make your last minute pitches to legislators in a sweaty, crowded area. But it was a busy year, and but glad that it's concluded and we have a little downtime to sort of catch up on life and refresh a little bit.
So I guess for our listeners who don't know you, you have your own firm, Cruz Strategies. Can you kind of tell us a little bit about your business and kind of how you started it?
Yeah, thank you. So I'm a partner at Cruz Strategies.
How'd you come up with the name?
I know, very creative, right? So started the firm with my wife, Veronica Villalobos, and my brother, Joe Cruz, who's since left and returned to his roots with the laborers. But we started the firm and focusing on local government, public agencies, higher education is the space my wife works in, and it's sort of grown from there. And so now I guess we're sort of a medium-sized firm, but I'm proud to say that if we're not the largest, one of the largest Latino-owned firms. And so it's a mix of clients, as I said. So we've got a lot of developers, CBIA is a longtime client, CVPA, and then we have the likes of Stanford Motion Picture Association, and then we do a good number of non-profit advocacy work with Dolores Huerta. I'm proud to represent the Dolores Huerta Foundation, and then what are some others? California Latina for Reproductive Justice. So all over the map. Right. So it's every day is different.
Oh, that's awesome. And then how many people work with you?
So we've grown. There's about 6 of us now, and 6 full-time lobbyists and some support staff. And so a lot to take on each day, but it's a pretty amazing crew. I think that's one of the things that I learned along the way is to surround yourself with people that are smarter than you, and in my case more organized to keep me on track. But
it's interesting. I remember when you're trying to start your own firm and you're trying to come up with a name, and everyone has a bear or a strategy or something into it. Did you guys ponder other names, or were you guys pretty set on just
Yeah, we went through that exercise, and I was a partner at another firm, and so we previously, and I think we came up with a pretty creative logo with the bear, and I chose not to do it this time. And I think the other thing we thought what we were really creative is, I don't know if you've ever seen these, Jared, but we had round business cards, and they look like coasters, and so we thought, well, these kind of stand out when you were, as I said earlier, at the gate, giving cards into members, and maybe it would stand out on their desk. But yeah,
how did that turn out?
I don't know, so mixed reviews on that, on that idea, but it was fun.
That's funny. It's kind of interesting. How are you liking the end of session in the rotunda versus the hallway?
It is a different dynamic, and so. I think that we've sort of gotten used to it for now, but one of the things, it's sort of our lead when we talk to clients for the first time in particular, that I don't know where we got this tagline from, but we don't lobby from the comfort of our desk chair. And I learned to lobby when I started my lobby profession from a guy named Alan Edelstein, and we had to be in the hallways and I felt almost like a used car salesman, grabbing people that are going by. But it's not just members, but it's with other lobbyists, with staff, and just almost like an information collection, location. It's like just to be there, and it's hard to duplicate that when you're at your desk.
Right.
So, yeah.
I found it's like kind of different. Like in the hallway, you could like at least go into that like little kind of waiting room area where you could have like kind of like a semi-private conversation.
Yeah.
But in the rotunda, like you're there, everyone can hear what's going on, everyone can see what's going on.
Well, absolutely,
yeah,
and especially in the last few weeks of session here, because there was a COVID spike,
right?
And it was hot, and I thought, oh, for sure, I'm going to walk out of here with COVID. Luckily, I didn't.
Yeah.
But it's definitely more confined, and so I do look forward to like opening up the space again,
getting back to normal.
Yeah.
You've been around for a while, and kind of we've had kind of changes like the 72-hour rule. It's kind of like I always talk to people like the end of session today is much different than it looked, 5 years ago, 10 years ago. Definitely much different than it looked 20 years ago. Can you kind of talk about that evolution, kind of how you remember like the end of session used to be, when you first started to now?
Yeah. From a lobbyist standpoint, I think overall it's not speaking from a public perspective, but from a lobbyist standpoint, it's made our job more fair, because most of those insider things sort of happen with a small collection of people, right, in the governor's office or in leadership. And sometimes you're a part of those, but most of the time you're not, right? Because it's a select issue that get that sort of daylight at the end of session. So I think for our client's perspective, having that time to respond, and it doesn't mean you're going to change it. I'll give you an example on the budget process every year.
Right.
The 72-hour rule, the bills get published, they get in print, and then you do your job as an advocate, and the response is it's done.
Right.
And so, so that can be frustrating, and so it didn't solve all of the, I think, issues of ensuring that there's the type of dialogue and discussion on these issues, but it has made it better from both the public and the lobbyist standpoint, but it hasn't completely solved it.
Yeah. Everyone always asks me like, how do you become a lobbyist? And, it always comes tough because it's like, there's a couple like thousand lobbyists,
Correct.
but really there's only like, I don't know, a couple hundred contracts who are here all the time, who are working things day to day. And a lot of them are like generational, right? It's like, family becomes family, or you kind of worked in the building a long time. Kind of what was your journey to becoming a lobbyist here in Sacramento?
Yeah, and it's funny, I use those same numbers. Like when I talk to people, I say, if you look at the lobbyist directory, it's a few thousand, but there's really 100 or so that are really that you see there on a regular basis. But so I am born and raised in Sacramento, South Sacramento, Meadowview area, and attended public schools in the area. And then I had an aunt that worked in the Capitol. I think that was the only connection. My sister worked as an administrative aide to Senator Cortese's father, so years ago. But I went to Sac State, took a class with Joe Cerna, who was a professor. He was the mayor of Sacramento at the time. And it was so fascinating because my parents were very active in the like Chicano power kind of movement. So UFW and all those things. And so I get to his class undecided on a major, and it just he was caught your attention in the way he spoke and sort of had a command. He was the mayor, of course, so you kind of sort of listened to what he had to say. But he had pictures on his wall of like Cesar Chavez, right, and marching with him. And at the same time, he's working with the Chamber of Commerce type business community, bringing the Sacramento Kings here. And I thought that's kind of like what sunk in with me. And I think to this day, is like to bring those pieces together, right, to bring that sort of social kind of justice sort of background to the table, but then also work with the business community to solve issues. And so that kind of, I think, sparked an interest for me. And then I did an internship with Hilda Solis, 1994, when she was first elected to the assembly. And then and that kind of got the ball rolling, and worked with her for a few years, and ultimately went to go work for Willie Brown in San Francisco. But I think that's what sort of sparked.
Oh, really? So you went to work for him as mayor in San Francisco?
Yeah. So I, in 95, working for Hilda Solis, the receptionist, the scheduler, Irma Morales, beautiful woman. Her brother-in-law was a former supervisor in San Francisco, a guy by the name of Jim Gonzalez. He was appointed by Feinstein, worked for Feinstein. And he said, do you want to work on this campaign for Willie Brown? I said, sure. I hadn't spent a lot of time in San Francisco. I'd been going to like Fisherman's Wharf. And so I was brought in as an organizer on the campaign for mayor, and the liaison to the Latino community. And so worked on that campaign and had a chance to meet, a lot of people. And, Kamala Harris was involved in the campaign and at the time. So Gavin Newsom was appointed to the parking commission and helped out in the campaign. So all these people who at the time, many of them, which I didn't know, but had a chance to be exposed to, and so many fun stories and learned a lot working under the mayor and former speaker.
Yeah, those are two dynamic mayors. Like I was just like a kid when Joe Cerna was here, but I just remember he just had like something about him. He just had an aura, and everyone respected him and liked him. You never read a bad thing about him in the paper. And then Willie, that must have been two great mentors to learn from.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think even sort of thinking about and reflecting on that, so you don't do that enough. You're so busy here, but thinking about those formative sort of years and where you picked up on things, and certainly from Mayor Cerna and then with Mayor Brown, I think one of the things that stands out to me is, the work ethic, but then just listening.
Right.
And one thing he was great at is sort of bringing people, and I'm sure that your father can attest to this, is like bringing all various stakeholders into a room and then just really listening, everybody having input. And then he would sit there, I remember, with his hand on his chin. And he's like, is he going to say anything? And he sort of gathered. Sometimes he wouldn't say anything in the meeting. Right. And he'd take in everyone's perspective and then make a decision based upon the wisdom of what everybody brought to the table, right? So he was learning, listening, taking it all in, and then he'd come up with a decision. So I think that's a big part of, sort of what I learned is really trying to be collaborative and listen. And I think we were talking earlier, I'm always very interested in people, their background and perspective, and sort of kind of taking all that in when you make it and you try to come up with a solution to issues. So
yeah. So that you worked on the campaign, and did you work in the mayor's office too then?
I worked in the mayor's office. So worked in the campaign. I was among, I think, about 10 organizers, and there was thousands of volunteers, right, that would come up to work. And you never know if you stand out well enough to get the call, to the big leagues, if you will. But I remember the mayor called me. I didn't get a lot of direct calls to the mayor at the time. And he just said, do you want a job? And I said, absolutely. And he's like, show up on Monday. So we show up at City Hall, and I'm working on the transition team. So going through applications of people who want to work in administration. And then soon after started to work on legislative work for the city. But got a job at City Hall. And then in between that, I should say,
I was like 96.
So this is 96. Yeah. So 95, he wins. And so 96, he moves into City Hall. And I remember I'm working on the transition team, and I thought, this is just fantastic. And I got my second call. My second call was, I need you to stop what you're doing, and I need you to go work, go work with Stanley Gaddy. And Stanley Gaddy was a guy who threw like events. He was an event planner in the market area. There was like a floral shop in the bottom, and I go upstairs. He has his place, and he's organizing the inauguration for the mayor. And so the mayor sends me down. I thought it was a demotion because I'd never worked on an inauguration. It's like, what? I was doing this transition team, and now I'm working at this flower shop, organizing this thing. And then the inauguration committee consisted of all these people who I've come to know, very important people. It was like Wilkes Bashford, the regatta was closed from, Charlotte Meyer Schultz, who was the Fairmont, owner of the Fairmont, and so I start putting all these people to work, just organizing, doing my job, and I'm directing people to stuff envelopes and, whatever the task, we're putting things together. And then somebody tapped me on the shoulder and said, do you know who that woman is that you have on the floor folding the envelopes? I said, no, I have no idea who that is. And then I realized that's why he put me there, because apparently there was someone there before me that was so fascinated with all these people that were important in San Francisco that they were sort of socializing and networking, and here I am just putting to work these very important people. But I think that was another, I think for me with Willie, it was he sees things like sort of 10 steps ahead, and he just needed somebody there to get the job done and not look for an opportunity to socialize.
That's funny. So when did you take your next step? When did you leave the mayor's office and come back here?
So I worked there for about 6 years, and then I became the state legislative point of contact, chief legislative position for the mayor for Sacramento.
Mm-hmm.
And so for 6 years, I would get to walk in the hallways and be, hey, I'm representing City Hall. So which was really.
Did you guys have a contract lobby back then? Or?
We did. So Alan Edelstein
Okay.
was the contract lobbyist. And then I think there again, people thought
The plot thickens.
Willie had all these friends, that he would give this contract to. And then Alan didn't have any special relationship with him. Alan just was an incredible lobbyist.
Mm-hmm.
Alan and Don Gilbert, who's there now.
Mm-hmm.
And we worked hard. We got the job done. And just put our head down and did. And so again, it was always fascinating that he would find people that would sort of get the job done and not get sidetracked with their own like agendas, And so coming to Sacramento, I was able to meet with a lot of people and work with our contract lobbyist. And then in 2001, Alan offered me a job. And so I continued to represent the city as a client, but I came on as a lobbyist for Alan Edelstein.
Okay, so then you started contracting lobbying
mm-hmm.
with Edelstein, and then kind of, where'd you go from there?
So I worked with Alan for a few years, and then I had a short stint with Fred Tour at Public Policy Advocates.
Okay.
You know Fred, and another great guy I learned from. So I think the pattern here is I worked with all these great people, and I got to learn from them.
All these old school guys.
I learned from Fred, and he was just very gracious and really calm, which is the opposite of, I think, myself. But I'm running around 1,000 miles an hour here. But and then I had an itch to do development. I knew nothing about home building and development, but in 2003, I left this. Finally, got a good paying job, and very settled, and I left it to pursue home building and land development.
You couldn't do both?
No, good question. Good point. I tried to do both. And then I was advised, hey, if you really want to do this, you got to jump in full 2 feet, jump in here and leave the lobbying world. So I made that tough decision at the time to leave and do development.
So did you buy like a plot of land? Did you?
Yeah. So I started with like doing a few custom homes here and there.
Just on your own, just on
my own.
Acted as your own contractor. You got your own subs out there.
Yeah, and I had some friends that were doing it, and I said, okay, I think I can do this. But the crossover for me was not so much the home building, which I knew nothing about. It was the land development, the entitlements, and so it was a similar skill set. So, I figured out how to buy a property with minimal down, putting options on it, and then giving myself a year, like a clock, so I wouldn't have an interest payment, but I get the land. And then I'd have a year to get it entitled to increase the value. But the work of getting entitlements was going to the city and basically lobbying planners and being nice to planners to get your project near the top and then get approved. And I would create this value, but I really didn't have much money behind it. And then I created the value. And then in turn, I was able to take that to banks to get construction loans to build. So before you knew it, and within a couple year period, I was probably building like 30 to 40 homes a year, but entitling maybe like 300 or 400 lots. So buying.
In what area did you focus on a specific area or kind of?
So I started in like Granite Bay and Folsom, doing sort of one-off kind of customs. Yeah. But then
so you're doing like $1 million homes, like
and then when I started doing the entitlements, it would be all over, but I tried to focus in South Sacramento where I grew up because I would see plots of land. And there's homes that are there today.
Cheap, right?
Yeah. In the Meadowview 24th where I grew up, that there's a few projects that are 50, 60 lot projects that I bought the land and entitled them. I didn't ultimately build the homes because it was just too big to build that many homes, but I really enjoyed seeing parcels of land that were like previously vacated or since I grew up there. I mean, there were like, kind
of like gentrifying your neighborhood.
Exactly. Yeah. There were plots of land that were just at one point were vibrant and people were living there that were just vacant and trash, thrown about. And so I would buy these little parcels of land and then subdivide it and then build homes there. So it was really I love the development stuff because it's gratifying because you can see the results of your work, and at least for 50 years or so, they're still standing there. So so I literally love development, but of course we know what happened in 2008 and 2009, and I ran back to politics. And so
did you just lose tons of money?
Yeah, I did.
Bankruptcy and all that.
I learned a lot of tough lessons. I learned about personal guarantees, and it was a stressful time. And I think, to be honest, that I was a little embarrassed that I, had to leave that. It was also true that just growing up there in 24th and Meadowview and being poor and, being around all that, I was always a little embarrassed, about when there were failures or when I felt, I with the home building thing that I had failed, but then I was reminded, well, everybody failed. It was a
Right.
global meltdown of the
Yeah.
economy. And so I got out of there and I went to CBIA and it was a perfect fit.
Right.
It was a guy, Tim Coyle was there.
Mhm.
And he was running their government affairs and he offered me a job and it was great because I had the experience of a home builder, actual experience. I'm a contract lobbyist,
Right.
as I said, I work on a lot of different issues, but I had the real life experience as a home builder, and I brought that to my lobbying
Right.
work, and so it was a perfect fit.
Did you have a contractor's license?
Ultimately, I
You
did.
yeah.
And my father and I, who had retired from the Department of Defense, he wasn't a contractor either, but we spent time with our contractor. And if you're on the license, I think it's 3 years or something, you can get your own license. And so ultimately, we got
Oh,
our own
nice.
license. And then I learned the home building aspect of it. But it was really just my kids would say, I said when I was a home builder, it's like, you haven't built anything. I said, well, home building, this is what home building is. You,
It's team-
you put
it's
the
teamwork.
deal together, right? You got the land and then you
Like the
bring
head
in your
coach.
contract. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, just sort of orchestrating all this stuff. But yeah,
That's funny.
but that was a great experience. And I still, even though, as you said, it was tough getting out of it financially, I got back into it. And
Right.
so I buy projects now and develop here and there, but just on the side because I really enjoy the process.
So it's interesting. Like you came in, you worked as a lobbyist for a couple of years, you built all these contacts.
Mhm.
You go away, what, in 03? What?
Yeah, 03.
And then you come back in 08. 5 years, you're gone, right?
Yep.
And so there's a new term limits, right?
Yep.
6-year term limit. So when you come back, all the members are gone, right?
Yeah.
Pretty much.
Now you're spot on with these questions because there's some people who are like, well, who is this guy?
Yeah.
And I had to start over.
Right.
So I basically made, I'm thinking about when I left so I left, I was in my early 30s.
Mhm.
And then when I came back, people that were in certain positions that had moved up and they were like the top of their field. And I said, gosh, I remember working with so-and-so,
Yeah.
right? And now they were working as staffers and now they're top-notch lobbyists in firms. And so I felt like I had some catching up to do. So I spent a couple of years just sort of regrouping and I worked at CBIA and then I worked at Political Solutions for a while. And then,
You're the only male to work.
the only male to work at Political Solutions. Yeah, that's right. But they had a great collection of clients and again, everywhere I went, I tried to learn something. And then I was approached, when was this? 2012, I guess, to be a partner at Gonzalez, Quintana, Hunter.
Mhm.
So it became Gonzalez, Quintana, Hunter, and Cruz. And I said to myself, well, I just went through this experience having a business and it failed. It was
Right.
very stressful. And I'll never do this again. I just never want to have to sign, the front of the check, just give me my paycheck and be comfortable. But I just have that entrepreneurialism, I guess.
Right.
And I just said, well, here I go again, And because when you start off as a contract lobbyist, it's not entirely eat what you kill, but in large part it is.
No, yeah,
It's
it
like,
is,
hey,
yeah.
if you want to be a partner, you're
Right.
bringing something to the table. And so there again, I put myself in the position of you kind of get a clock. You have from this time to this time. And then after that, you got to bring in business. So I had to start over,
Right.
even when just after I was comfortable. So
This is the other thing that people always ask, like, how do you become a lobbyist? How do you bring in business? Like, you went from nothing, right? CBIA, you're just starting there again. And all of a sudden you have Political Solutions. So you had to bring, I imagine, CBIA there or something. Like, why would they take you on? And then you had to have a book of something for them to want to take you on as a partner. So
yeah. So I brought a few clients over to Political Solutions. It was CBIA and a guy named, so my first client when I went ultimately to have my own firm was Mike Wynn, longtime developer here in Sacramento area, great guy, great mentor. And then the California Dental Association. And when I was at CBIA, Liz Snow was there temporarily, who's now the chief of staff for Speaker Rivas. She was at CBIA. She left Dental Association. And so I worked for her. And then when she went back to CDA, she's like, hey, do you want to work for me? I was like, absolutely. So I kind of had that to sort of build off of. And ultimately, I didn't, when I moved to Gonzalez, Quintana de Cruz, it was like I had this time clock and I didn't really have the clients, but I had to I don't want to say I said I had the clients, but I said I'm confident I can get them. And so the business development part is, I think, what I've learned to get better at, but it's a being able to lobby and know policy and lobbyists that went into contract will tell you this, is different than getting business.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit of sort of selling yourself, right, on what you're capable of doing, and then hoping you can deliver.
Right.
And so I think I think the point in my career where I got better at it was when I started to be myself. I think when I started for many years, was trying to fit in and look at so-and-so lobbyists and what are they doing? And I want to be like them. And like I said, really a little insecure about where I came from. Right. And then I didn't even mention home building because I was embarrassed about what had happened. And so once it clicked in me to just be myself, then it made the business development side much better for me. So
yeah, it's interesting. When I first started, everyone looks at this like Capital Weekly top 100 firms, the top 10 firms in billing. And you look up those firms, and you're like, oh, wow, like, how do they do it? But then you talk to some people who've been here for a while, and it's like the top 10 firms aren't top 10 firms forever. It's like, a lot of these firms, they come and they evolve, right? It's an evolution.
Yeah.
And I just like, for example, I love talking to like Les Spahn in Dodd's office, who like was a contract lobbyist in like 1992.
Yeah.
With like Clay Jackson, some of these guys in the big firms, and then you don't see those guys around anymore. It's a fascinating evolution.
No, absolutely. And those are guys that Les was one of them. He's a fantastic lobbyist, and I learned from him, and I had a chance to work with him because he was close with Alan. But with our firm, it's grown a lot, and I give credit to my wife and partner in the firm. And again, another lesson from Willie Brown, bringing in people who are really smart, and we've grown pretty quickly, if you've noticed, in the last few years. And I think part of that, and kind of going back to the business development, is what we try to do is advise clients that, look, this is wherever the line of work is. They're in California. You understand what the politics are here, and what the membership looks like, and so try to bring solutions for them that line up with where we think legislators might be. And you lobby too, that where a lot of the mod caucus oftentimes sort of makes. Is the swing, on things. And so how do we sort of connect with some of those members on behalf of some of our clients to make decisions that are like not hard ones for them, but make it so it's a win-win for them as well. But sometimes coaching clients kind of through that, what the realities are, and then getting them to trust that what you're bringing to them is the right solution.
Yeah. So someone who's, developed and built homes, someone who represents developers and home builders, how do we build more homes? What the hell's going on?
Yeah, that is the answer, right? Obviously, is building more homes across the board, affordable, market rate. And I still think, I say, and I've heard somebody else sort of propose this, that for developers, when you assume all the risk, right, to build these homes, or when you build at home, and you can get 10%, whatever your margin is, like you just do the math on the price of a home, like you're winning, right? And so if you can do it in a way where you go to a market rate builder and say, build these homes and then do it at cost, whatever your cost is, and then we're going to give you, I'm just making this up, like $25,000 per unit or something.
Right.
I mean, I would do that, And so you do everything at cost, and can you deliver homes at an affordable price? And it's still hard with land prices and labor cost. And
I think that's a fascinating thing. Is like, there's a lot of variables in home building. I remember when Governor Newsom was first elected, and he said, I forget the number, but I want to build X amount of homes.
Yeah.
And I remember having CBIA on here and talking about it and the kind of the challenges. And that's back when interest rates were low, prices of lumber were lower, labor were lower. I remember I was trying to do a project back then, and you could, build a home for $200 to $300 a foot. Nice home. Now that same home's $700 to $1,000 a foot here in Sacramento. This is not LA or Beverly Hills.
Yeah. Well, I think Ryan Ellis, it turns out, is my son's soccer coach. Just made that connection recently, who writes for the Sac Bee. He covers a lot of the development issues. He did something, I think, last week that had it at like $600,000, like to build, I don't know, 1,200 square foot. I don't know if I have the right square footage, but that's the cost. It's just, and there's a lot of factors, but Yeah, my own experience, the recent experience with development, I bought some land in Oak Park, and I'm happy to say that the entitlement part of it took like 6 months. So it was two lots, merged them, went to the city, and
Right.
it was commercial zone property, put this mixed use project together, and then I spent about a year doing all the engineering and all the construction drawings, which is really costly, and then I put it out to bid, and it was over $300 a square foot, and so it didn't make sense. My finished costs were more than the appraised value, so I sold it, and so that's happens everywhere. You know?
Yeah.
And because you think
Happened
when
to
you,
me, yeah.
yeah, when you build something, whatever you build, whatever widget, if I get the components and I put my labor into it,
Right.
build it, there's some increased value. But for housing at the moment, and if you do it in larger, if you do it in mass, I guess, right, you're a large builder and you get, you deal 500 homes at a time, and it's
Yeah.
different. You can spread that across, but right now it's hard.
That's interesting. So, all we hear about is housing, housing, housing. We need housing. We see all these bills going across the desk last few years. What have they been focusing on? And, is it helping?
I mean, yeah, there are a lot of bills to streamline the process, and so I think that has led to more homes being built, and I think we've seen some of the numbers that there's been increased production. One of the problems is like for affordable housing, if you look at what the set aside is from the state for just affordable housing, it's much lower than you would think. And the problem, as I said, there needs to be, I think, a better way in which where you find these, where you have this gap. We sort of just talked about what the numbers are. It doesn't pencil out because if I even do for all this work,
Right.
I'm whatever it is, $50,000, $25,000 short. Figuring out how you fill that, but then the moment that you put those benefits into a state program, then with other stakeholders, then you put in, labor provisions, or you put in other pieces of it that require more time or more costs. The equation sometimes doesn't fit together, and so it's just
It's interesting. Yeah. So what you're saying is it just doesn't pencil out for private investment to come in and do this, and that's
Yeah.
why we don't have more housing.
Yeah.
So it's kind of interesting. Is like what the state's purely focused on entitlements, right? If we make the entitlement process easier, then building will come. But you're saying that's not necessarily the case.
Yeah, I mean, because it comes with costs, right? I mean, so if you look at, and they're great pieces of legislation, but if you look at, SB 35 or some of these other things, the number of units that were built, I think, which is why you saw Senator Weiner come back this year to expand it and include like market rate and not just affordable. And so I know it was a challenge of expanding the areas in which you can apply it, because once you go through the legislative process, you sort of eliminate areas
Right.
that you can do this in, and so you take away the value of it. So, I think there's more that can be done, but it's just there's the when it goes through the process, when it comes out, there's compromises, and so it's not as beneficial as that you would hope, to
Right.
be honest. Yeah.
Like, I just like on a local government perspective, I remember I went to law school in San Jose, and I remember they had a great program in San Jose that if you were a teacher or a firefighter or something like that, they'd give you the down payment because it was super expensive to buy a home in San Jose.
Yeah.
It was only like,
Yeah.
you could buy like a new townhome for like $500,000 back then. Now it's probably $1.5 million. That's
Yeah. Yeah.
And so that's a big problem, right? Like for somebody to buy a home, they need a down payment. They need to be able to afford the monthly payment, which now interest rates are 8%. And then on the development side, you guys have to buy materials and labor because it's expensive to build stuff. Has there been any talk about the state stepping in, helping in on interest rates, down payment assistance, or some way to kind of stabilize these material prices to really help, I guess, build these homes affordably?
Yeah, there was a good program. It's either last year or the year before. I know Senator Hertzberg was heavily involved in, and maybe others. So I don't want to not give credit where credit is due, but they put together a down payment assistance program, and it provided the down payment assistance, and then figured out at the course of it, because sometimes you get the down payment, but you don't get the benefit of equity over
Right.
the long haul. But they put together a formula where the new home buyer benefited from some portion of the equity, and then the state also benefited because in the increased value, you could ultimately pay back a lot of money that was committed to it. And so it was really a program where the state received some return on their investment, and then the homeowner got it. So I think that's a good program. There's been a home buyer like tax credits years ago, and I feel like those work. It's been some time, I think maybe 7 or 8 years since the last time they had a home buyer tax credit. I think that those kind of programs do work, but haven't seen enough of it, to be honest.
Yeah, it's interesting because it used to be able, like, you'd buy a home in Elk Grove, far away, and you could buy it cheaper. You could buy a nice big home for like $300,000-$400,000. Now those homes are $1 million.
Yeah,
and there doesn't appear to be like, building like that much in Elk Grove like there used to be. Seems like there's some building outside of Folsom, but it just doesn't seem like the home builders are cranking like they were 10 years ago.
Yeah, I think right now, I think with you said it earlier with the interest rates is sort of kind of cooling things, but the values are still there because the inventory is still low.
Right.
But yeah, it's good for homeowners, and that they're getting some wealth through the homeownership, but it makes it hard to produce homes at a price that are affordable. You look at, you're right, $600,000, what the income requirement for somebody to buy a $600,000 home,
Right.
So yeah.
So, I've been informed that you are into low riding cars, even though you told me your back kind of hurts. Kind of a big year for low riding here in the legislature. Can you kind of tell us a bit about it? Your history in low riding and kind of what this bill kind of means to you and your community?
Yeah. So as I mentioned, I grew up in South Sacramento and got a tough area growing up. And at that time, and I don't want to stigmatize it myself, but I would say if you had a lowrider, there was a you were stigmatized in that you were probably in a gang or something, that you were doing that that wasn't right. And so I wasn't, I liked lowriders and I appreciated them, but I think when I was younger, it was like Volkswagen Bugs, right? And I think I had a Bug, or I had like a Trans Am or a Hot Rod or something. But I've always appreciated lowriders. And then during COVID, I think and my back was hurting, so I was doing less golf. I've always appreciated them, and I bought a '64 Impala convertible with 13-inch wheels and not hydraulics, but I had an airbag, so it's another system of making the car hop a little bit. But I got into it, and I was a little. It's like, am I going to be judged because I'm buying this lowrider? But that's who I am. That's my culture. That's what I was around. And then so I went all in. I bought about like 5 or 6 different cars in like 3 years, trying to get the one I really wanted. And I now have a '59 Impala convertible, and it's classic. But then I also put my small wheels on there, and it looks like a lowrider. But just the culture, I love the culture, and it's become really. It's sort of made a comeback, as you said. You see a lot more car shows and cruises in Sacramento, and it's a family activity. My wife and my kids, go with me when I do these things. And then you mentioned the David Alvarez, Luz Rivas bill that would lift the local bans on cruising. And so it's one of the bills this year that I think most excited about. But yeah.
So did you like personally testify for that bill? Like
I did. Yeah, I did. I was there waiting for the hearing to do it in person, and then they asked if I could testify, and then I left, but I did by phone. I did call in support, and I really believe.
So what does it take to get into this hobby? Like, how much does it cost to like, take a car and make it be able to cruise and move like that?
Yeah, it is very expensive. The first car I bought needed some work, so my plan was to, and this is how I think sold it to my wife. It'd be good. I could learn how to work on the cars. I could have the boys there with me. We can tinker it in the garage. And then I realized when you went to go look to talk to a body shop or a mechanic, they don't work on those kind of cars. The body shops are doing like insurance work, or the mechanic is doing something. Maybe they have a fleet for the county or something. So it's hard to find shops that do this kind of work. And so because I'm an impatient guy, I said, I'm just going to buy one that's finished. And so that's what I did. I bought a car, and I still, even the car that I have that's finished requires work. And so you're constantly
because those hydraulics go out, right?
Yeah.
Left and right.
Things break all the time. So you just like, it's like, painting the Golden Gate Bridge, you paint it, and then by the time you get to the end, you got to come back. Something's inevitably so goes wrong. But that's part of the fun of it. I have a list, and there's a car show I think on Sunday, and I'm going to have my car in it at Cal Expo, and so I have a list of things I have to do. But that's part of the fun of it. And but otherwise, it's better to buy a car that's done nowadays. It's for me at least, anyways.
No. And like what like you said, like I guess the jostling, like what does it do to the body? Like how many people can you have in the car when it moves like that?
Yeah, well, I have just like an airbag system, so I'm not, there's no whiplash in my car,
Right.
but yeah, I mean, it's five people that can
You
fit
can
in
fit
there.
5 people
Yeah,
in the
yeah.
airbags
But the
on
car is
board.
like a boat.
Right.
It's a 59 Impala,
Uh-huh.
so it's like 20 feet long, and I have a Continental kit on the back, and so, but the back seat is pretty small, so you have to sort of squeeze in there.
It's a
But
convertible, right?
it's a
Or- yeah.
convertible. Yeah, yeah.
So and you park that at your house? You have enough room? Move all the other cars
Barely.
around?
Yeah, I had to move my my newly built garage cabinets around it to make it fit. But yeah, I put it in my garage.
That's good. Well, that's fun. So you're doing a car show this weekend? We can come check you out.
Yeah.
Check the lowrider out.
Yeah. Check it out. Cal Expo. There'll be cars from all over. And I don't know if you noticed, but there was on Capitol Mall a few weeks ago in celebration of like a lowrider holiday. They brought together 100 cars from all over California, different car clubs. And I'm not part of a car club.
Yeah.
I'm a solo rider, as they call it. But I was invited by the organizers of it, so I got to be there with that celebration on the Capitol Mall. And it's just a fun activity hobby that I enjoy now. And after golf, having to step away from golf.
That's funny.
Yeah.
So a lot of people talk about like, oh, you don't want to mix family and business.
Yeah,
You've done that. How's that experience been like? And kind of what would you recommend to someone in the future trying to undertake their firm? And like you're working with your wife, like
yeah.
I know my wife and I could not work.
That is a very good question. Yeah. I think one of the ways is we don't work together a lot on client issues,
Right.
Because we have different opinions. She
Right.
thinks I'm loud and too aggressive in my approach, and she's more methodical and thoughtful.
Like I was mentored by Fred Torr.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I got some of that, but together we run the business, and I do enjoy that. I love that, and making decisions, and she's having her wisdom on making decisions on people that we work with, working with the right people, and how we do it. I think, to be honest, like the values, a lot of that comes from her. The reminders to like with our team, and we have a great team of lobbyists. I should say Audrey Ratajczyk and Nick Romo, Stephanie Estrada, great lobbyists. And it's such a frantic pace that she reminds me, hey, have you asked them how they're doing? Are you making sure they're getting time off to do the things they need to do? And so she's the one that sort of keeps it sane, and I make sure that we're doing the right things. But otherwise, we don't work on a lot of client work together. I think maybe that's and then my brother, that was just really a great experience to come from where we were and to start this firm with Veronica, and then to work together. And I think, the politics in the legislature are, labor's a powerful force. And so,
Especially now.
Yeah.
It's just crazy.
Yeah.
All these strikes everywhere.
Yeah. And so I'm able to have my employer or public agency clients, and then where there may not be those opportunities to align with labor, but I think my brother and I work together and say, what we're trying to do is, whether it is boost the economy or retain or grow jobs, how do we work together as a force, like in the capital, to do that? And I think that's another area where I think,
isn't that the solution to the home building, right? Labor and housing coming together and making
yeah.
a deal?
Well, there was an
Cruz
effort.
brothers need to make this happen.
Yeah, no, there was an effort, and Dan Dunmoyer over at CBIA, where they tried to put this deal together, because you can have labor and you could have the necessary wages that the workers need, but maybe at a different level than that's prescribed currently. And so I think somebody needs to figure out their trade-off of, we can do more homes that can benefit from CEQA streamlining, because some of the real CEQA streamlining is still on the table, but you need to negotiate with labor to get that. And then figure out what those wages are that still allow it to pencil. And so he spent a couple of years on that. And I think that could lead to a lot of home production. We just weren't able to get it to the finish line. So hopefully they can continue those discussions.
Yeah, because it's a moving target, right?
Yeah.
These wages and interest rates.
But outside of that, I mean, like I said, my brother and I, and with other working with labor, I think have come together in a more effective way to move like good policy. And again, drawing that connection back to legislators to say, let's sort of have a balanced decision here where we protect some of those
Right.
jobs, because one of the things that I found is everything is in the extremes. So when it's an employee issue, or it's when you look at business, it's this big bad corporation,
Right.
but that there's sometimes get lost is so many people work or own small businesses. And so how are the decisions that we're making affecting those people? And those people aren't necessarily here walking the halls,
No,
right?
yeah.
And they're running their business.
Right.
And if you talk to people all the time, you tell me you work in politics, and
You get a big eye roll.
yeah, there's a lot of pessimism, and how do we bring their voices to it? And that's what I actually try to do in the work that I do, try to bring their voices to the table on these. And so to make sure as you apply these, like, let's make sure that how are you impacting the dry cleaner or the restaurant, who are a lot of people of color and a lot of Latinos and African Americans, Asian community. Like, how are what we're doing affecting those people? And it gets lost. And I think, to be honest, you try to keep your personal views out of these things because you're nonpartisan, but sometimes there's that frustration.
Right.
I hear it in talking to people. And that's why even what's the low riding or other things that I do outside of work, where I stay in contact with people that I try to bring to these conversations. So
yeah, it's interesting. Yeah. So you've been doing this, what, 30 years?
30 years, yeah.
So kind of what are some of the most things you're most proud of that you've kind of worked on?
Yeah, I mean, you kind of talked about it, like the housing issues and trying to bring my experience as a home builder to bring solutions. And we have passed a lot of good bills that have increased like production and streamlined process. I would say the experience working with Willie Brown, and then more recently working with Dolores Huerta. And we worked on an issue.
She seems like more popular today than she ever has been.
Oh, she's an icon. Yeah. And I had a chance, obviously, to watch her from afar, but to work with her, it's crystal clear why. We worked on a solar bill, a consumer-related bill, and we had calls set up with staff, occasionally, and on the bill, occasionally be the member, a lot of times staff, sometimes interns, and I was an intern too. She would be on every call. We'd have Zoom calls, and I would say, Dolores, you don't have to be on the call. I think we can handle this on every single call. And I kind of said this when I described Willie Brown. They've seen these issues so many times. Yeah. They're 10 steps ahead. Right. And so to see her operate and then just to be like in her presence to work with her was... How
old is she?
I think she's 92 now. Yeah, and she's still going strong. But I think about the people that I like admired and looked up to, and I had a chance to work with her. So I think that was one of the experiences that I really enjoyed.
That's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
So you said you represented the motion picture industry.
Yeah.
Any cool experiences coming out of that so far?
Yeah. So I started working with them just last year.
It's kind of a rough time, I guess, right now in motion picture world.
Yeah. And so what we were working on was the tax credit program. Okay. And so I learned a lot, and I think we were successful in extending the film tax credit. It was $300 million a year. And so we were able to extend that out. And the conversation around that tax credit as it was going to the legislature, because it's one of the most important industry, right? So you look at the film industry, and then I did something on ag this year. So I'm representing these industries that are important.
Stuff you learned doing this
stuff? And so was diversity. And so when the legislature, as you know, looks at these issues and is going to extend some benefit to an industry, they want to make sure that their values and their imprint is on it, right? And so this issue was around diversity and how to ensure that these jobs in production, front of the camera, behind the camera, that you increase diversity in their workforce. And so it was extending the benefit of the tax credit to ensure they stay in California, because we're losing that to other states. But then to be able to say, and while we're doing this and working with the industry and working with legislators to increase like people of color and other folks that have not had an opportunity to work. So it's gratifying in that way, So that's, I think, why I enjoy working on these issues, because even when you work for industry, I think there's, you work for industry and you're not working for this sort of social causes or equity things. I go,
you're a bad guy.
Yeah. Well, you're a lobbyist. Right. But I try to say to people, I'm just on the inside, and there's a lot that you can do to accomplish all these things, because you have 30 years of experience of knowing the process and knowing people. And so we try to bring that to the table, like as we do our work. So,
yeah. I guess we're kind of coming into an interesting time. I guess, it kind of just dawned on me yesterday is I guess we have another 12 members leaving next year out of the assembly. And I guess we have this early March primary coming up. And so, you always think, you have a little bit of a break, but I guess you really don't anymore.
No. And it's, we're so focused on the legislative work.
Yeah.
During the year, you meet candidates, but this is the time of year where, I think I hit the road next week to go meet with different candidates that they'll be newly elected, and it's a new group of folks that you have to get to know and meet and educate on your client issues. So yeah, it never ends, but it's good. It's good to have new and fresh perspectives. And I think this class, even this year, I think it took over the course of the year to get to know sort of some of them, and you make assumptions about people based upon, this is where they came from, who supported them. Right. But it's been really nice to see the different and new perspectives that kind of consistently sort of change. And grow.
Yeah. So, everyone's like, oh, end of session, you can go out, you can go on vacation. You don't have to come up till January. Kind of what's the next few months looking for you?
Yeah, I've got some vacations. I think catching up on things and with clients, and you do a lot of the field kind of visits and tours. But I think this year, I do want to focus on our office and how to really make more efficient sort of operations, and always sort of checking, are we doing the right thing? Can we do something different, and how can we be more effective? And so I think we're going to spend some time with the fall. Have you seen those when you have the sort of sessions and somebody comes in with like a board and they draw like cartoon characters on the board, and you have a whole like sort of planning sessions. For some reason, I kind of envision that. I don't know, that just to be cool. And you leave, and they leave you with this whole sort of blueprint of what you talked about. They capture everything, but they do it in animation. So maybe we'll try.
That's pretty cool.
See if it works. Probably last a day, and I'll be off doing things.
Take a photo of it.
Yeah. So,
awesome. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for joining us, Steve. Fascinating stuff to get to talk to you, and can't wait to look forward to what you're going to do next year.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks, Steve.
Thanks.